In this video, I will discuss three of the most common types of non-probability samples. Remember that non-probability samples are not random samples, okay? In this type of sampling, you're not leaving it up to chance when you're trying to figure out who to include in your sample. Instead, your sample is based on certain criteria. You are making a conscious choice to include or exclude certain people from your sample. Now, because it is not a truly random sample, that means your sample is probably not representative of the overall population. And that means you cannot make sweeping generalizations about the population. You know what is true in your non-probability sample, but you don't know that that would necessarily hold true for the overall population. So that is a limitation of non-probability samples. Now, that being said, non-probability samples are used a lot in research. And oftentimes, non-probability samples are exactly what you want. You don't want a truly random sample in many situations. For example, if you were going to do a study focused on some study about gaming, gamers, what gaming culture, and let's say you were going to do a focus group to get a better feel for the culture of gamers. You don't want to just like randomly pick people from the population and include them in their focus group, because you may end up selecting people who don't play video games at all, and they're not going to be useful in your focus group. You would want to zero in specifically on hardcore gamers. You would want to make a conscious decision to limit your sample to just those hardcore gamers. It's not a random sample, but it is the kind of people that you would want to include, because those are the people who would give you the information that you want. If you were a company looking to market a product, let's say, you're, I don't know, let's say you're manufacturing soft drinks, and you want to find out how your cola compares to Pepsi and Diet Coke. You probably don't want to just grab random people. You want to make sure the people you select for your study are cola drinkers, people who are heavy consumers of soft drinks, because those are the people who would give you the kind of information you want. So in many situations, it makes perfect sense to use a non-probability sample. Let's talk about the three main categories of non-probability samples. The first one is convenience sampling, which is the weakest of the three. But then there is also purposive, or it's sometimes referred to as deliberate sampling. And then finally, snowball or network sampling. There are other types as well. I know the textbook mentions a few other types, but I want you to focus in primarily on these three types of non-probability samples. So let's start with the first one, which is convenience sampling. This is the weakest form of sampling, and it's basically just what it sounds like. A convenience sample would be sampling whoever happens to be convenient, whoever is readily available to you. So that would be saying, I got to do this survey. Who am I going to survey? Oh, I know. I'll just give this survey to a few of my close friends, or I'll just give this survey to students in one of my classes. That is convenience sampling. Now, sometimes people think that's random sampling. It's not random, right? If you give a sample to your close friends are not random people. They are people that you have chosen to be your friends. They are probably people who are very similar to you in a lot of ways, and therefore they're not representative of the broader population. So a convenient sample is just choosing people who are easy, who are convenient, okay? It is the weakest form of sampling because it's kind of lazy. You always want to ask yourself, if you find yourself wanting to do a convenience sample, ask yourself, can I do better than this? Can I come up with a sampling strategy that's going to be a little more sophisticated than just convenience. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes convenient sampling is the best you can hope for, but in most cases, you can probably do a little better than convenient samples. The second type of non-probability sample is the purposive or deliberate sample. And this also is kind of what it sounds like, right? Where there is a purpose behind the people you select for your sample, or you are making deliberate decisions about who to include in your sample. You are deliberately selecting the people or the items that have the characteristics that you are interested in, you know? So for example, deliberately selecting hardcore gamers for a focus group to learn more about gaming culture. Or to give you another example, let's say you are interested in studying organizations or businesses that you're interested in how organizations or businesses incorporate social responsibility into their behavior. So your the focus of your study is on social responsibility. So rather than just choosing organizations or businesses randomly, you would probably want to deliberately select businesses or organizations that have a history, a track record of corporate social responsibility, okay? And those would be the businesses or organizations that you would focus on. You are deliberately selecting the organizations or businesses that have those characteristics of interest. Third type of non-probability sample, the snowball, or sometimes it's called network sample. So if you think of a snowball, right, a snowball always starts out small, and as you keep rolling it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Snowball samples are kind of the same principle. You start by inviting a certain number of people to participate in your study, and then you ask them to help you recruit others. So this kind of sampling is often used in focus group research. You may invite 5 or 10 people to be part of your focus group, and then you tell those people, hey, go ahead and ask your friends or your family members or the people you know or the people you work with, encourage them to also come to the focus group session. And then those people in turn will invite still others. So you begin with a certain number of people, and then those people in turn invite others, and your sample snowballs. That is also non-probability sampling. Again, it is not random. This is not a random sample, but it can be a very effective sampling strategy for certain types of research, particularly focus group research. So all three of these fall under that non-probability category, which limits your ability to make generalizations about the population, but you still may be able to find out some very useful and valuable things, even though your sample is not necessarily representative of that population.